Everything was going fine until the day the register came up short. I'm Ellie, 22, a college student trying to claw my way out of debt, one scan of canned beans at a time. My days were split between lectures, late-night study sessions, and working the evening shift at Kingman's Market, a family-run supermarket in a town where everyone knew your name and your business. I'd been there 2 years, 6 days a week. I didn't party. I didn't date much. I showed up early, stayed late, and smiled through every "you sure this coupon expired? And are you old enough to work here?" I'd gotten pretty good at predicting who was going to pay in quarters and who was going to yell about bagging. I knew Ms. Margie only bought peanut butter when it was on sale, and Mr. Donovan would pretend not to notice the young cashiers if his wife wasn't around. And through all of it, I had Chloe, my best friend since high school and now fellow register warrior. Chloe had purple streaks in her hair, a sharp wit, and a laugh like breaking glass. She kept me sane through the long hours and weird customers, whispering snarky commentary and sharing cold Red Bulls from the back fridge. The store itself had that old grocery smell, a mix of produce, floor wax, and the ghost of a deli section that hadn't been cleaned properly in years. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, and the ancient AC unit coughed more than it cooled. But I liked it. I liked being useful. Then one Thursday evening everything changed. I just clocked in, the digital punch ringing out a cheerful beep, like it wasn't about to ruin my life. Greg, our store manager, was leaning against the service counter, talking to a district rep with his usual faux charm. Greg had one of those slick smiles that made corporate love him. A real people person, they called him. We called him a control freak. He always wore crisp polo shirts and walked like he owned the place. To the higher-ups he was gold. To the staff, he was the guy who micromanaged schedules, refused to approve overtime, and once made a teenage stockboy cry over mislabeled soup cans. I didn't think he had it out for me, until he did. At the end of my shift, Greg called me into the cramped manager's office. Chloe gave me a confused look as I passed her. It wasn't like him to do meetings after hours. I figured it was schedule stuff, maybe a shift swap. "Sit," he said, not looking up from a stack of papers. The room was hot. No window. Just a dusty clock ticking too loud and a crooked Employee of the Month photo from 2014. "You were on Register 3 today?" I nodded. "We ran end of day." "You're short." "How short?" $500. That hit like a punch to the gut. My throat went dry. That's not possible. I ran everything through the scanner, and the till." Greg held up a hand. "Ellie, don't. This isn't a debate. The drawer was short. The only person who touched it was you." He leaned back in his chair, suddenly more casual. "You've always seemed like a good kid. Quiet, reliable. But maybe you're under pressure. School loans, rent, parents breathing down your neck." I blinked. Are you saying I stole it?" He sighed like this was exhausting for him. "Look, HR will be notified, but as of now, your employment here is terminated. You'll be escorted out. No warning. No camera review. No chance to speak." I was frozen. "Greg, I didn't. Don't make this harder than it is." My legs barely carried me to the break room, where Chloe was waiting. "Ellie," she said, eyes wide. "I got fired." I whispered, dazed. "They think I stole money." Her jaw dropped. "That's insane. You'd never." But I was already being followed by a supervisor who wouldn't meet my eyes. As I walked out into the humid night air, my world started to spin. Word traveled fast. Too fast. By morning, the rumors were already live. Ellie got caught stealing. Ellie pocketed the cash. Ellie snapped. My parents didn't say much, just exchanged those looks. My scholarship committee emailed a request for a disciplinary disclosure. I felt everything I'd built, my reputation, my future, collapsing under the weight of one manager's word. And the worst part? I couldn't even prove I didn't do it. Not yet. The worst part wasn't getting fired. It was how fast people stopped looking me in the eye. 2 days after the incident, I walked into town to drop off a library book. The cashier at the coffee shop, who used to give me extra whipped cream, suddenly didn't recognize me. I passed a group of regulars from the store. One of them whispered, "That's the one who took the cash, right?" I wanted to scream. Instead, I kept walking. At home, my mom kept her distance. My dad didn't say anything, just cleared his throat every time I entered the room. "You've always been so responsible," he finally said one evening. "Which makes this hard to understand." I couldn't sleep. I kept going over the shift in my head. Everything had been normal. The drawer had started with the right amount. No angry customers. No system crashes. Nothing that would explain how $500 vanished under my watch. And yet, Greg didn't even ask questions. No camera check. No second till count. Just exile. Chloe was the only one who didn't flinch. She came over with snacks and her beat-up laptop, determined to find the missing puzzle piece. "He's hiding something," she said between bites of pretzels. "Greg always talks about accountability. But where's his?" I shrugged. "Everyone's scared of him." "They shouldn't be," she muttered, pulling up the store schedule on her screen. "You said you were on Register 3. Let's check the shift logs." We dug in. Chloe had access to some internal systems from her shift leader account. Nothing sensitive, but enough to see some patterns. "Wait," she said, pointing at a column. "You were signed in from 1:03 p.m. to 9:06 p.m., right?" "Yeah." "Greg closed the register at 9:30. Without you." "That was weird. Cashiers usually close their own tills, count the drawer with a supervisor. Greg had taken mine alone after I left early by 3 minutes. Ellie, that's not protocol. Not even close." We looked at each other. Something was off. Badly off. That night, I got a DM on Facebook from someone I hadn't talked to in over a year. "Laura H. You're not the first. And I can help." I stared at the message. Laura had worked at the store before me. She quit suddenly a year ago. Everyone said she'd had issues. But now? Now I wondered if they'd just made her disappear too. I replied, "What do you mean?" She answered almost immediately. "Greg's done this before. The register goes short, someone gets fired. HR can't prove anything, and he walks away clean." I left before he could pin something on me. But I kept notes. My heart pounded. She sent a PDF. It was a scan page of handwritten entries. Names, dates, register numbers. All short tills. All people who were either fired or left under clouds. "Holy hell," Chloe said, reading over my shoulder. "This is a pattern. He's been doing this for years." "But why?" I asked. "Because," she whispered, "if he's cooking the books and blaming staff, nobody looks at him." And just like that, I had a mission. The next morning, I met Laura at a diner on the edge of town. She wore a hoodie, no makeup, her eyes flicking around like she expected Greg to materialize in the syrup section. "You're brave," she said, after our awkward hello. "Or desperate." "Maybe both." "Mostly desperate," I admitted. We sipped burnt coffee while she pulled a manila folder from her bag. "Everything in here is what I could gather before I quit. Shift logs, time cards, till audits I wasn't supposed to see. You'd be amazed what gets left on printers." The folder was messy but damning. There were at least 6 incidents over a 3-year span. Same MO, register short by hundreds, cashier fired, no investigation. All of them were part-time, young, and replaceable. "Why didn't you come forward?" I asked. She laughed bitterly. "Because Greg was golden. Charming, polite, always concerned about protocol when district managers were around. And I was just that girl who cried about her paycheck once. HR said, and I quote, 'If you're unhappy, maybe this isn't the right environment.'" I'd heard those exact words too. From the same HR rep, a woman named Dana who always said her hands were tied. Still, I couldn't go on hunches. I needed evidence. And for that I needed access. That night, I used my legal right under the Fair Credit Reporting Act to request a copy of my employment record. I also requested access to video footage from the store for my final shift. I worded everything precisely. Chloe helped, double-checking every clause. "Nice," she said. "You sound like a lawyer. I might have to become one by the end of this." I submitted the request through the company portal, copying HR and the regional office. And then I waited. 2 days. 3. On the 4th day, I got a response. "Your request has been denied due to ongoing internal review." Internal review? Of what? But then came the gut punch. My cloud storage folder, where Chloe and I had backed up the time card logs and audit documents, was gone. Just gone. "Someone deleted it," I said, staring at the empty screen. "Someone with admin access." Chloe swore. That was our smoking gun. I felt sick. I'd let myself hope, and now I was back at square one. That night, I nearly gave up. But then Chloe burst into my room holding something like a prize. I found this, she said breathlessly, holding up an old red flash drive. Remember this? I copied everything here before we backed it up. Just in case. I totally forgot. I could have kissed her. We plugged it in. The files were all there. Dated, documented, with Laura's notes and our own logs. And I knew what I had to do next. Let's bury this bastard, I said quietly. It turns out revenge isn't loud. It's spreadsheets, timestamps, and watching hours of grainy video footage until your eyes blur. Chloe and I made a plan. We called it the dossier. It had sections clean, labeled, color-coded like some twisted science project. Section A, time card inconsistencies. I was signed in, but my drawer was closed by Greg. Same for the other fired employees and Laura's notes. Section B, register reports. Each short occurred on a Thursday or Friday, the days Greg usually handled night deposits solo. Section C, witness statements. Chloe got 3 co-workers to speak on record. One remembered Greg arguing with a stock boy over a similar drawer issue. Another remembered being told to mind her own business after asking about a terminated cashier. And finally, Section D, the footage. We got it, not from corporate, but from a sympathetic assistant manager named Jenny. She was quitting to move to Texas, and her exit interview was scheduled for the next day. Jenny had never liked Greg. She met us behind the Goodwill on Main Street, of all places, with a USB drive in a plastic sandwich bag. You didn't get this from me, she said. We nodded like spies. I nearly cried from gratitude. The footage showed Greg removing my till alone. He opened it, counted, then slid something into his jacket pocket. It was subtle, but it was there. Game over, Chloe whispered. I called a legal aid clinic the next morning. A sharp, no-nonsense woman named Mara agreed to help. We met in her office, surrounded by law books and the smell of cheap coffee and lemon disinfectant. You've got more than enough, she said after going through the file. Pattern, motive, video. This is textbook wrongful termination and probable theft. But he's protected, I said. Corporate loves him. Mara smiled. Then we go to corporate with everything through me. You don't talk to them. You let me. 2 days later, Mara sent a formal packet to regional management and HR. A cover letter, a statement of claim, and an invitation to resolve things before it went public. She included the footage, the logs, the witness statements. They're not going to want a lawsuit, she said. They're going to want this to go away. Good, I said. So do I after Greg goes with it. The waiting nearly killed me. Every day, I checked my email like it was a lifeline. Chloe stayed close. Laura texted updates. The town, meanwhile, went on like nothing had happened. But I knew something big was coming. And this time I was ready. The email came at 8:17 a.m. on a Wednesday. From Harper, Denise, Regional HR Manager. Subject, Notice of Internal Review, Kingman's Market. We have received documentation and video materials regarding concerns at the Kingman's Market location. Please be advised that the matter is being escalated for immediate review. All relevant parties will be contacted. Thank you for your cooperation. I read it 3 times before I could breathe properly. Chloe hooped like we'd won the lottery. This is it. They're taking it seriously. But I didn't celebrate yet. I'd seen too many people brushed aside with a polite, "We'll look into it." Then 2 things happened within 24 hours. Greg's car didn't show up in the lot. Jenny, our mole, texted us a single line. He's been suspended pending investigation. You got him. I dropped my phone. We waited. The review stretched over a week. I kept my head down, tried to focus on finals, but every time my email pinged, I jumped. Then one Friday afternoon, Mara called. I could hear the smile in her voice before she spoke. They fired him. 3 words. That's all it took. Apparently, Greg had been embezzling for years. Skimming small amounts weekly, hiding the gaps with falsified register reports and blaming staff. The footage and the pattern we exposed blew the door wide open. A deeper audit uncovered more. Forged entries, ghost hours, petty theft dressed up as protocol. He's lucky if this stays a termination, Mara said. If corporate presses charges, he's looking at real consequences. But the best part? Kingman's corporate asked to meet with me. They wanted to offer restitution. Apologize? Quietly, of course. I agreed, but with terms. I want my name cleared, I said, sitting across from 2 regional reps in a rented conference room. In writing. And I want to work again. Somewhere else in the company. Somewhere I can actually grow. They agreed. Fast. So 2 weeks later, I started as an assistant shift supervisor at a different branch 3 towns over. New crew. Better pay. Clean slate. And guess who I saw on my second week? Greg. He came in to pick up his final paycheck. In jeans and a faded polo, no badge, no clipboard, no smug authority. Just a man with too many secrets and no more protection. He didn't speak. Just looked at me like he couldn't believe I was behind the counter, clipboard in hand. I looked right back. Didn't flinch. Didn't smile. Just nodded. Like justice. You'd think that would be the end of it. Greg gone, me vindicated, a new job and a clean record. But justice doesn't erase damage. It just stops the bleeding. Back home, things were still tense. My parents never apologized outright. They tiptoed around the incident like it might re-explode. My dad said, well, I guess it worked out, over dinner once, like my near expulsion from college was a minor hiccup. Mom just nodded a lot. Her way of saying sorry without saying it. I stopped trying to fix it. I had other things to build. College was still on track, though barely. I'd had to beg my scholarship board to reconsider. Thankfully, Mara's legal notice, plus a letter from corporate confirming the termination was wrongful, saved my eligibility by a thread. Chloe, bless her, was a lifeline through it all. She even came to my new store a few times to mystery shop and joke with the cashiers. They have no idea their assistant supervisor once took down a whole scam artist, she said, tossing gum onto the conveyor belt. You should wear a cape. I just laughed. But it stuck with me. Because underneath the exhaustion, there was pride. Laura stayed in touch too. She was working a boring accounting job but sounded lighter on the phone, freer. You closed a chapter for a lot of us, she said once. I just hope you know that. And I did. Slowly I rebuilt. I kept my head down but my spine was straighter. I spoke up more. I started mentoring new hires, quietly, carefully, teaching them not just how to manage a shift, but how to protect themselves. If something feels wrong, I told one new cashier, don't wait. Ask questions. Keep records. Your future is yours to defend. And every time I said it, I remembered that dim office with the dusty clock, and Greg's voice saying, don't make this harder than it is. I wish I'd told him then. You have no idea what hard looks like. But you're about to find out. Clearing your name sounds like a clean thing. Like scrubbing a floor or erasing a whiteboard. But in real life? It's slow. Sticky. People don't unhear rumors, they just replace them with better ones over time. I started seeing it a few months into the new job. Coworkers stopped referring to me like I was the new girl and started asking real questions. How do you learn inventory so fast? How do you stay so calm with angry customers? Because I'd already survived worse. I didn't tell everyone the story, but I didn't hide it either. When one of the teenage cashiers came to me in tears because she'd been accused of skipping the register log, I walked her through how to request a system review and file a formal note in the shift record. She blinked at me like I was speaking magic. You just know how to do that? Let's just say I learned the hard way. A week later, I got a thank you note folded into a candy wrapper. You made me feel safe, it read. That matters more than anything. I kept it in my locker. Meanwhile, Chloe had been promoted to lead front end at our old store. She texted me a photo of her new name tag with a caption. From gossip column to goddess. How's that for a glow up? I replied. Your villain arc peaked early. Now you're the hero. And Laura? She'd started building a case study of what happened, anonymized but factual, to help a nonprofit with workplace abuse awareness. Maybe someday we'll testify, she joked. Do a TED Talk. How to take down a charming corporate sociopath. You bring the slides, I said. I'll bring the fire. But even with all the healing and humor, there were days I still flinched. A man in a green polo walked past the store once and I swear my heart stopped. Same build. Same walk. Not Greg, but my body remembered. That's trauma. It doesn't care if you got justice. But dignity? Dignity fights back. I walked taller. I trusted slower. But I never doubted myself again. 3 months after Greg's firing, a letter arrived from the corporate legal office. It wasn't threatening. It was an official, thank you for your cooperation in the matter of the Kingman's Market internal investigation. Enclosed was a gift card. $1,000. Blood money maybe, but still a nod. A whisper of an apology in a language corporate actually speaks, compensation. I didn't spend it right away. It sat in a drawer for a while like a weird trophy. Then came the second letter. Not from corporate. From Greg's lawyer. It was a cease and desist. Apparently, he'd heard about the rumors floating through the store chain that he'd been fired for theft, that I'd helped bring him down, that maybe, just maybe, his golden boy image had cracked beyond repair. The letter was laughable, baseless. It asked that I refrain from further defamation or professional sabotage. I read it 3 times, then handed it to Mara. Her laugh could have peeled paint off the walls. He's grasping, desperate. He knows his reputation is bleeding out. Can he actually do anything? I asked. Only if you start making TikToks with his full name and a banner that says, "Greg is a thief." But since you haven't, he's just swinging at shadows. I never responded to the letter. But I did keep it, tucked next to the gift card. A reminder, even when justice lands, the guilty don't always go quietly. But they do go. By the time I heard he'd applied for another store manager job across state, word had gotten ahead of him. Laura knew someone in that chain. She texted. Guess who didn't get hired? Poetic. In a world where bad people often fail upward, this was a rare win. Quiet. Sharp. Permanent. Greg had built a career on making others look like liars. Now he was the one nobody believed. 6 months after everything, I was promoted again. Assistant manager. Real title. Real benefits. A parking spot with my name on it and everything. On my first official day in the new role, I walked the floor with a clipboard, greeted the team, checked the inventory report, and made a quiet promise to myself. No one under me gets treated the way I was. Weirdly, the worst thing that ever happened to me became the blueprint for how I lead. I noticed when people looked tired. I asked about school schedules and parents in the hospital and what "I'm fine" actually meant. I gave real breaks, not fake, just run to the back for 5 breaks. I logged everything. I made sure protocols were followed, not to catch people, but to protect them. I became the kind of manager I wished I'd had when Greg looked me in the eye and called me a thief. And people noticed. One day, I found a post-it note on my locker. Thanks for having our backs. You're the real deal. No name. Just that. Chloe came to visit sometimes, still working her way up the chain. We'd meet for lunch, trade stories. She always ordered 2 drinks, one to sip, one to dramatically throw out when the gossip got juicy. Did you hear? She said once. Greg's working at a car rental counter. Tells people he left management for less stress. We both snorted into our sandwiches. He thought firing me would be a clean kill, I said. Instead, he set me free. And I meant it. Not in a fake Instagram quote way. In a real, bone-deep way. I'd lost my job, my reputation, nearly my education, but I'd rebuilt all of it. Stronger. Smarter. With scars that reminded me how much I'd survived. And Greg? He'd lost everything he'd built on other people's silence. Sometimes I walk by the old store. The Kingman's, where it all started. Where I folded paper bags, scanned milk cartons, and tried to survive Greg's smug little kingdom. It looks the same. Maybe a new paint job. But if you look closely, you can see the cracks, the faint outlines of a broken rain. I don't go inside. I don't need to. I already took what I needed from that place, the lesson. What Greg did to me wasn't personal. Not really. I was just another quiet girl he thought would stay quiet. Someone easy to blame. Someone too desperate to fight back. But I didn't stay quiet. I learned how to document. To connect. To prove. I learned the language of systems, how policies and people can be weaponized or redeemed. I learned who would stand with me when everything fell apart. Chloe, Laura, Mara, even myself. Most importantly, I learned that truth doesn't always roar. Sometimes it walks in, calm and prepared, with a flash drive and a folder of facts. Greg tried to erase me. Instead, I erased his legacy. I don't tell this story for sympathy. I'm not a victim. I'm a survivor who got smart. I tell it because maybe someone out there is being blamed right now. Maybe they're scared to speak. Maybe they think no one will believe them. To that person, I say, document everything. Trust your gut. Find your allies. And never mistake silence for defeat. Because when the truth is on your side, it doesn't matter how loud the lie is. You don't have to scream. You just have to stand. I didn't scream. I didn't curse. I just showed them the facts, and the truth took care of the rest. Ellie,